right. Hello and welcome everyone trickling into the Zoom room and joining us on our live streams on LinkedIn and on YouTube. We'll get started in just a few seconds. We'll just give people a little bit more time to join us. Then I'll formally introduce our special guest today. And then we'd love to get your information and feedback as well. So feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. Tell us who you are, where you're tuning in from today. And you can also post your questions there using the Q&A pod here on Zoom, or you can post in the comments on LinkedIn, and we can check those out a little bit later, but we really just want to have a conversation. So hello, and welcome. It looks like we've hit over 50 people now in the Zoom, so I'll get started. Yay, happy Wednesday, happy hump day, everyone. My name is Lishan Huang. I am the Director of Design Content and Learning here at AIGA, the Professional Association for Design, and I am joined by Janice Chaka, who is a coach, an international HR professional, an expert. She is the founder and CEO of the Career Introvert, and she also hosts the Traveling Introvert podcast. She was based in Mexico for many years, now based in the US and traveling when it's not COVID time. So we could talk about that, but we're here as an open house for the Career Success for Creative Introverts course. That's a partnership between Janice and AIGA. We are about to launch our second cohort of this course. We launched our very first cohort back in January of this year. It's a 12-month course with monthly modules and live sessions for the different tiers, as well as private coaching for the top tiers. But we'll go through that curriculum and how we're tweaking things and improving things for the second cohort as well, and what we've learned along this journey. So Janice, I wanted to welcome you formally.
Thank you. That was a great introduction. How is everyone doing today? I would love to know in the chat. Let me know. Loving the vinyl collection. There's a story here. If we have time at the end, you can all find out about this vinyl collection. But what's the weather like where everyone is? I'm curious. I haven't been outside yet, so I'm going to live vicariously through everyone.
Yeah.
Like, what is the weather? I have no windows where I am.
Yeah.
Oh, Kent. As in Kent in the UK? Because I know America's also got a lot of like words in the UK that are like similar.
Yeah.
Kent, Ohio.
Oh, okay, very sunny.
Just as good,
it's
I'm
sunny
sure.
Here. Yeah. It's sunny here in Boston too. We have like, plenty of those like old England names here in New England as well. And sometimes they're pronounced the same and sometimes they're pronounced differently, and I get confused.
Thank you. Well, Burlington, that's close. I'm trying to figure out who's the closest to me.
Philadelphia, San Diego.
It's always sunny in San Diego and Philadelphia.
Yeah. Maryland, Charlotte, Los Angeles, DC. Oh, it's rainy Chicago. In Chicago though. Okay. All right. Sorry for the Midwesterners.
London. Okay. Now I have to ask, like, London, England, London, Canada, London. Where are we going with this London thing? Out of curiosity. Anyway, thank you all for Monterrey, Mexico. Hey!
Hey. I'm ready
all
for
right.
New England summer, as you can see from my look today.
Oh, London. Hey, all right.
Okay. Awesome.
So all around the world. This is great.
So we can talk about the course and how it's structured, but maybe we could give a little bit of the backstory about why there's a need for this, because this is for people who identify as introverts, as creative introverts, which includes designers, which is, I think, most of the AIGA community, folks who self-identify as designers of different stripes, but also other creative practitioners who might self-identify as craftspeople. You like making things, sometimes like being social, but I think there's a cost to that. So maybe we could just define a little bit of the backstory in some of these terms, because it is a kind of wide audience, but also targeted at the same time.
Oh, well, I guess I'm going to start with the, what does introversion mean to you question. Yeah. So for me, and generally speaking, introversion isn't about being shy. It's not about being awkward. It's about where you get your energy from. It's kind of like how introverts are rechargeable batteries, but extroverts are like sun panels. Introverts need time to recharge, be it by themselves or with one or two people, enjoy small groups. But large groups, you can find it exhausting and you'll just hit like this wall. You'll be out in a party, enjoying yourself, talking to people, whatever it is. And then you will just find you hit this wall and like, I want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. And then you need to go somewhere and just be quiet and recharge. And so managing your energy is really important for that reason, and knowing what exhausts you and what energizes you is super important for that reason. But having said that, you can have shy introverts and you can have awkward and socially awkward introverts, and you can have socially awkward extroverts as well. The main thing is we're all humans, we're all on a spectrum. There is no one right way or one wrong way, but there are better ways to deal with certain things and how you are as a human. So with me saying that, how many of you identify with what I've just talked about? And then I get like radio silence.
Emma says me, Ariel says definitely, Angela 100%. And now it's going too fast, so I can't read everybody's name, but there's lots of yup, agree, yes, 100%. Savannah, Carolyn. Yeah, so lots of agreement going on here. Joseph is saying large groups wear me out. You mentioned the energy thing. Is there something to that as well about like, I know for my partner, for example, he's very sociable, but he kind of prefers one-on-one or smaller group things, but like a large, say, like we were at my 20th college reunion and like both of us were just kind of done after a couple hours of like reverberating in a big like Harry Potter style dining hall, like Hogwarts, right? Like just with the acoustics. And I don't know if that's age or introversion or what the deal is with that.
It could be a little bit of highly sensitive. It could be, yeah, it could be acoustics, it could be age. I'm feeling that for sure. Also, we're just not used to socializing anymore. Like it's a different world right now. And so many of us haven't really been out and socializing in large groups for a long period of time. And so when you do go out, it's extra exhausting. But yes, I'm glad that everyone, I think we've got the right people here, because people are like, yes, me. And Zoom hasn't helped. A lot of us are zoomed out too. That's a thing. So what were we talking about? We were talking about how this came about. As far as what I've been told and what I've seen is, I know, of course, at least 50% of us in the world are introverts, but with creatives, there seems to be just like a higher percentage of us that are more on the introverted scale. And you know, there's a scale. No, very few people are like super introvert and super extrovert. There's normally a scale, and it might depend on the day and the people. And yeah, so don't get stuck in I have to be in like this type of introvert all the time. No, we're humans and we're multifaceted, and that's how life works. But yes, there is a skew for creatives that tend to be more introverted, especially like UX designers and anyone that gets to sit behind a computer all day. And so AIGI reached out to me and was like, we want to help and support our creatives more, and how can we do that? And so we came up with this together.
Yeah, awesome. I think we've seen this as a community working with our members. I think our members are very social in a way, right? We had our first in-person event in DC in March, which was our first one since I think 2019, right? In the pandemic, and the people who did show up, I think we're really happy to see each other, who knew each other from before, as well as people who are maybe new to our community and to our events. But I think there is, as you were saying, this energy thing, right? Of like, okay, you can be really into an event in person and then still kind of need to crash for a bit afterwards. And then just learning how to manage that. And the like, just, I guess, being out in public again or in offices again is still a thing that we're dealing with as having a learning curve, as we've spent, nearly 2 years on Zoom, right? So two of the big topics, and we'll talk about some of the other topics as well, that came up when we've polled people in terms of like their areas of interest and concern, had to do with imposter syndrome, which I think is a big thing for folks who are creatives, as well as just self-promotion, right? How do you do it in a way that's effective, that moves your career forward, whether you're in-house or you're a freelancer, you run a studio, and you always have to be marketing yourself and putting yourself out there, but how do you do it in a way that doesn't feel icky, right? These are like big questions that we're not necessarily able to fully answer today, but that is what we address in the course.
Yeah, and to add to that, this is a new and recent thing that's happened, because with the whole imposter syndrome, it was originally coined by two people way back when, but there's an industry expert called Valerie Young, and she's been working on the imposter syndrome for 40 years. And she is currently training coaches and diversity experts on how to cure imposter syndrome and how to work with imposter syndrome. And so that is one of the things that I am doing as my professional development over the next 2 months. So I'll be spending a lot of time with her, which means I get to spend and take everything that I've learned and pass it on to you as part of the course. So I'm really excited about that. And the imposter syndrome and the introversion do tend to overlap a lot, just because of I know I'm good at my job, I know what I'm doing, but how do I shouldn't have to speak about it. How do I talk about it without bragging? But I'm not, I could do that job, but people should see it automatically rather than me pushing myself forward. And so part of it is introversion, and just like we know what we're doing, we know we're good at it, why can't other people see it and just like promote us? And the other part of it is a little bit of the imposter syndrome and procrastination, and well, I got here through luck, or I got here because I knew a person, or so on and so forth. So that is the thing. And someone's mentioned that, yes, the world primarily values extroversion. I would say certain cultures primarily value extroversion. And this tends to be one of them, is what I've found. And well, because one of the things that I did in my past was I did a course on networking for introverts, and I did it around the world. And it was most popular in Southeast Asia when they were working for American companies. That was basically like the sweet spot of like people who wanted it. Because their culture is more introvert leaning, but their work culture was extrovert leaning. And so how to work in an extrovert culture and community, and what if your boss is an extrovert and doesn't understand that you would love 2 hours of time blocked out just so you could do deep focus work, like how to have those conversations and still be authentically you. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with the way that you need to express yourself or having time for yourself. You just need to figure out a way that you can work in a way that it works for you, shows your best light, but also is understood. There's a lot of misinformation about introversion and not enough storytelling out there by us fellow introverts, to be fair, and others, about how we can do just about anything. We just need to do it in a way that works for us, and be supported by people who understand that not everyone works the same. Yeah, totally. That's my thought on that one.
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge some of the comments that are coming in on the LinkedIn side of our stream right now. A couple comments about weekends. Chandriana, I hope you're saying your name right, was saying that something that she recently learned about herself was that sometimes she needs a whole weekend to recharge after a week of social events related to work. And also Carmina was saying, if an event happens on a weekend, I feel like I ended up not having a weekend to relax. That's for real as well. And then Erica noticed that burnout at work has me wondering if I am an introvert where I thought I was an extrovert before. I feel like there's that extra dimension there of like stress and burnout, exacerbated by the pandemic, probably making people maybe rethink, how their energy levels even work, or how they might just be different than pre-COVID.
Yeah. And speaking of the sort of that part of it, actually, can you say it again, just because I had a thought in my head and I lost it?
Yeah, there was something, this was, let's see, pulling this up, about somebody saying that burnout, Erica was saying, burnout at work has me wondering if I'm an introvert where I thought I was an extrovert before. So maybe just getting to burnout or dealing with stress has people reconsidering what drives them in terms of energy, as going back to that definition.
Yeah, and that's one of the other topics we talk about is boundaries, and this helps with burnout. We as humans are bad at setting boundaries, but with the COVID environment and the Zoom environment and having meetings for absolutely everything, makes setting boundaries really hard. And so that's one of the things that helps you long term, is setting boundaries for specific things, like not having back-to-back meetings, or making sure that like Monday is meeting free day. I know some organizations do that, but then don't stick to it. Setting those boundaries and reiterating them without sounding like a jerk about it. And it's really important and not done often enough. Also, like some of it is just the culture of companies. I have a background in HR. And so one of the things that is really a problem is company culture, which you can't always change, but you can make changes within your organization. Or if you are a manager, you can have your team work the way that works well for them, and that might trickle out to the rest of the organization too. But most organizations don't realize about the back-to-back meetings, don't realize to send an agenda beforehand. Just having an agenda before a meeting would be helpful. Knowing about when is good to have a meeting and when isn't good to have a meeting. You don't have to have a meeting for everything. What about asynchronous communication? What about, there's all sorts of things. But as a manager, because there is a manager track, we talk about like how to set that up within your team so your team works well for you. Because I know a lot of introvert managers feel the stress of, I now have to support 18 people or 10 people or however many people it is. It's going to drain me. Maybe I don't want to be a manager. And it's not that they wouldn't be a good manager. They just don't have the tools and the skills, or just don't know how to set their team up and them up for success in all those different ways.
Yeah, those are some really great points there. I'm seeing some amazing comments continue to trickle in as well. So I'll have to get to them in order, or just in how I'm taking the notes down for them. One is, we have an anonymous question about imposter syndrome. And basically they're asking, what about imposter syndrome if you don't know if you're good at your job? So it's not necessarily lacking confidence, but it's not knowing if you're good, and then you're being self-conscious of that, of like not knowing, I guess, if you're measuring up to what it takes to perform on your job, less so than like a lack of confidence necessarily, but it's that not knowing.
Follow the data. That's kind of like, are people saying you're good at your job? Are people, and it doesn't have to be your boss, just like clients, customers. What data are you getting back? Is it positive data or is it negative data? If it's negative data, then like work on the negative data. If you're getting no data whatsoever, then you need to go out and try and get that data by asking questions. We're very good at being in our own heads and like having full-on conversations with like your manager or your peer about stuff at night, and you're just like having these conversations. But until you actually ask, you don't. We're making a bunch of assumptions, which might be right, but also could be wrong. And so get data and get third-party validation, because a thought is not a fact, as much as we like to think it is. But it really isn't. You're not doing yourself a favor by that. And it's not something that happens overnight. It's building up habits. And that's something that I want to make very clear, that this course and everything that we do is not like a magic silver bullet that you do one and you're like, oh, I've nailed it. No, this is constant work and progression on yourself. And you learn new things all the time. I'm still learning new things all the time. I don't know everything, and I can't know everything. And so, and sometimes we falter. Sometimes we go back into our old habits because we've been doing that old habit for 40 years. So it's okay to try things and learn from them and review, and then go back to the data. But yes, third-party validation. Thought is not a fact. Get the data and then review and go from there.
Yeah, I'll add some kind of personal experience into this as well. Earlier in my career, I've worked in small teams or startup kind of environments where I was like the first designer, the only designer for a while. And so there weren't rubrics or like ways of measuring like, oh, am I performing as a designer, right? Because the people I was working for were not designers necessarily, and there wasn't structures in place yet. So a lot of the work that was necessary was to even just come up with like, okay, what do we agree for defining performance as good or bad? And so rather than just, I guess, staying in your own head and wondering like, oh, do they think I'm competent or not, of like trying to see if those things exist in formalized ways, and if not, working with your team, with your manager, to actually articulate what those are, especially if it's a startup or a small team like that where you're like the only one.
Yeah, I feel that.
Let's see. Where will we go? Zoom, I think like Zoom can go both ways. Nicole was saying in LinkedIn that she's actually thankful for Zoom because it's allowed for working from home and being less drained from people being in the office. So I feel like it can go both ways, right? We can either sometimes we get the Zoom fatigue, but other times like really thankful for Zoom that I can just zoom into something while I'm on the road or something. It doesn't, not everything has to be a video Zoom either.
No, that is very true. No, it does not. It can just be audio.
Like we're live streaming now. I'm sure you enjoy seeing our faces and stuff like that for this open house. But yeah, if it's just a team thing, like certainly at AIGA, we sometimes do team meetings with the cameras on. Other ones are like camera off kind of meetings. It's more like a conference call that just happens to be on Zoom rather than on a phone.
Mm. I know some organizations do like walking meetings where they're like, is everyone getting their exercise in today? We're all going to go for a walk and have this meeting while walking in the park. So there are definitely different ways of doing it.
Yeah. Let's see. Carolyn is asking perspective as a student trying to break into the field. Do you have any advice for students or people who are, I guess, just starting out in their careers, who are maybe new or unsure about their abilities? And is this course applicable to people who are yeah, newer or earlier on in their careers as well?
Actually, it's really good if you're new because then you have less unlearning to do. What I found is some people, depending on like the culture you've been in or the organizations that you've worked with, if you've been doing stuff for a long time, you've learned what you like and what you don't like and what works well for you. But if you haven't been in the organization or doing this for a long time, you get to learn how to set boundaries now, how to have those conversations, how to set up your virtual C-suite, how to where to ask for help, how to ask for help, and it's almost like a leg up. You get the inside secrets that everyone kind of learned the hard way. Is what I would say.
Yeah. What I've noticed too, sitting in on the monthly live Zoom sessions too, is that there's a peer-to-peer dimension to it that's really useful as well, because you have folks from across the country, maybe across the world even, and they can share their perspectives as well. So they're working with Janice as the expert facilitator, but there's that value into the community too, if you're signing up for the tiers that have the live sessions.
Yeah, next question.
All right. There's a few questions here, so I'm just trying to make sure I get to this fairly. We talked before about self-promotion in terms of like getting work, but then there's also self-promotion in terms of like getting promoted at a job at a company where you're already at, right? Trying to move up internally within an organization. And so do you have any thoughts on that, or is that something that's covered as well about career progression, promoting with your boss, talking about those sort of things?
I would say career progression, like it isn't one of the standard topics within like the tiers. It's not like one of the monthly videos because it doesn't apply to everybody. Where it does come in is in our live events or in our individual coaching. I know a lot, some of the people that do have the individual coaching level, they've used it to do mock interviews, to go ahead and have that, like, how do I tell my boss that I want a promotion? Or my boss won't give me that promotion. I can't get any further in this organization. I need to go look somewhere else. And so that's what they've used the like one-on-one coaching sessions for, because it's kind of very specific to, are you in a nonprofit? Kind of a designer are you? Like how you would approach getting a promotion will very much depend on your company culture, your boss, and your relationships, or it's more personal.
Yeah. I saw a comment that scrolled past, but basically somebody was commenting on like the challenges for a lot of designers to define what success looks like in order to bring that data to your boss for promotion, right? Like sometimes it's cut and dry if if you work in a very like commercial environment where like this thing that you designed got X number of clicks and X number of conversions and people bought this number of products. But most of the time you're working in a team. Was it you? Was it the rest of your team that gets the credit for the sales? But then there's also like marketing and the whole, just the brand positioning to start with, right? And not everything is like quantifiable to your specific inputs into something necessarily. So there's maybe other ways of measuring that are fair.
Oh, fair. Very few companies are good at being fair.
Yeah.
So that's what I would start with that one. Well, that's part of the reason why you have your own portfolio, because it's not just relying on what your boss says for you to get a promotion. You also, and this is not specifically something we cover, but I know AIGA like does portfolio work, is because you're going to be building that up, and that speaks for you as a creative. But with sort of quantifying, is your work good or not, and the data isn't super specific, there's still data out there. It doesn't have to be that your thing did how many clicks. It's like, did it serve the purpose? Did it communicate whatever it is it was supposed to communicate? Did someone works for a sleep company and they're like, well, my logo now is like the logo for the entire company, like it works, or people commented this about my work. And if you're not sure, ask your manager, like what works for you, what is it that you're looking for. Some managers are like, I want you to send me an email every Friday and tell me what you've done, because I'm managing 50 people and I can't keep track. And some people are like, oh no, I've got this and I know what I want or I need. Because one thing you need to remember is you're in charge of your own career, not your manager. And so you might think or assume that your manager knows exactly what you're doing all the time. But to be fair, they've got their own job to do, never mind like keeping an eye on everything that you're doing. So learning to communicate and what that looks like is really, really important.
Yeah, that's great. Another kind of thread of questions or themes that I'm seeing has to do with networking, which I know that that's been a very recent topic in the first cohort of how do you promote yourself at networking events, or even just tips on starting conversations.
Is this in person or is this online? Because they're very different things. So if it's online, I'm going to start with online first. A lot of events and webinars and summits done online. And if it is online, most of the time you'll be able to see who's going to attend. And so then do your research, look and see if there's 2 or 3 people that you want to talk to, research them, connect with them on whichever platform seems the best, and go from there. But if it's like in person, technically it's the same thing. You most of the time will know who's going to be there, and then you can prepare in advance, which is a wonderful thing, of 2 or 3 topics that you can talk about to anybody. It could be a latest article that's come out in a magazine. It could be some artwork. It could be like, where do you get your inspiration from for this piece? All of these sort of other things that help. But it's not just the start of the conversations. What people fail to realize, it's the relationship building. It's not I'm going to meet you at this event and then you're going to hire me, or you're going to like do all these things. It takes time most of the time, and people need places to go to. So that's why you should have your portfolio, and that tells your story. And that's why your social media profile should be engaging or done in a certain way. I'm not saying you have to be on all the social media either, for the record. I'm very much about anti-hustle. I don't like the hustle culture. I'm not going to tell you that you have to be everywhere all the time, because I'm not.
All at once, or whatever that movie is called, right?
Yeah, things will all at once. I'm just not doing that. So if that's what you're looking for, I'm real sorry. This isn't that the thing. But
right, it's not necessarily to go from like introvert to influencer, right? It's not that kind of like before and after kind of like I don't know, slightly hokey kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I'm imagining someone who's going to make a course that's introvert to influencer. I could see that.
Yeah, when that launches, I'll be like, oh, called it.
But yeah, it's relationship building, and that's one thing like introverts are really good at. We're really good at talking one-on-one with people and digging a little deeper than the weather and, oh, what job do you have, or where do you live? Because especially in the world we're in now, the questions that ask need to be a little bit more inclusive. So like, where is home for you is far better than where are you from, because most of the time where are you from doesn't mean you're there now. Like, most of us that are on here are probably not exactly in the same place that they were born. I doubt you all are calling in from a hospital, and if you are, probably shouldn't be. So just it's something to think about. But in general, yeah, it's an ongoing thing. And it changes. Like, what I would have done 10 years ago would be different to what I do 5 years ago, would be different to what I do now, depending on like how much online and offline stuff that I want to do. And you get to make that choice.
Awesome. All right. Let's see, where are we going here? So there's an anonymous question about advocating for yourself if introversion is treated as a negative quality in your organization. So I feel like there's two parts to that, right? About like the culture of your organization and biases against introverts, but then how do you sort of reframe that of saying like, okay, this is actually not a negative thing. It's just a natural human difference and actually has value to a lot of organizations. So there's almost two parts to that, right? Advocating for introverts, but then advocating for yourself as an introvert.
So, I mean, my honest answer is different organization, but I'm probably not supposed to say that officially. It can be super frustrating and super hard. I'm sure that there's more than one of you in the organization, and it's finding those other people. And it doesn't have to be labeled introversion. It's just that I like to work this way. There's one person that I'm currently coaching, and her organization is fairly extrovert leaning, and they have this whole conference that is like everyone has to attend and sparkle for 3 days. And she's like, I don't want to do it. I don't. It's another reason I don't want to be a manager, because you have to be forced to go to this thing. And I was very much like, I'm sure there's more than one of you that is like this. And this is a way to help talk about inclusion and diversity is, hey, it's great. We all want to attend the conference. Some of us, we should be able to rotate out, that we do one day where we do at the door and one day that we get to lead a co-working session where we're all like in the office working, but we're all still together and at the conference, and making it easier for other people to be like, oh, it's okay for me to say this thing, or that I am this way. But if you look at it from a diversity and inclusivity lens, a lot of companies are super into that right now. It's the new buzzword. So that tends to get a better viewpoint than introvert versus extrovert. Does that help? And as far as sort of articulating it for yourself, it's for me to get the best result, or for you to get the best results out of me, it is good for me to work in this way, in this methodology, or it's helpful for me. And I'm sure for others, if you do X, Y, and Z.
Wonderful. We have a question from an entrepreneur, so I'll just read it off. There's some context here. I own a business, but I realize that both my business partner and I are both creatives and both introverts and have introvert tendencies, i.e. needing a lot of personal time and space to regain energy, etc. We'd like to increase our capacity by building a small team, but I feel that our introverted tendencies can sometimes be a challenge when it comes to being outgoing with relationship building. What advice would you offer so that our introversion doesn't interfere with what's best for growing the business? That's a big question. But I feel like a lot of folks are in this predicament, I think, as designers who maybe start a studio, and then when they're ready to grow, it's like, how do you go beyond that founding team?
Okay, so I guess I have to get a little personal. I'm an introvert, and I ran a team of 20 recruiters all around the world many, many years ago. And it's how you manage your energy, but also picking the right team is really important. Get teams that balance each other. So some extroverts, some introverts, but also the skills required. And as you're starting to grow a team, set the communication cadence at the start. So why would you email? Why would you instant message? Or why would you have a Zoom call meeting? Or why would you have a video meeting? Setting those standards in advance is really helpful. As well as, I know one company that had different levels and tiers of meetings, because one was sort of like, I have a spider in my kitchen meeting. So like, you could probably deal with that yourself. And then there was, I have an elephant in my living room. So you kind of need 4 more people, and there needs to be discussion. And what is the aim of this meeting? And be very, very clear about it. But also with relationship with your team, we're great at one-on-ones. And that's the great thing about running a team, is you get to dictate how many one-on-one conversations you have and building that relationship. And it doesn't have to get super personal. I ran a team of 20, and I knew enough about them, and they all came to me and trusted me, but I wasn't like up in their business. And a lot of people will actually appreciate that. But if they want to talk, that's also great. But having the energy is sort of blocking out times, knowing what works for you, and building your team because it's your business. So you get to build a business the way you want to, the way that works for you. And you can try stuff and it might not work, and that's fine. You then try something else. So it is totally possible, but you have to set the building blocks yourself and try. You won't know unless you try.
Awesome. I felt like that was like a pep talk too, as well as an answer to this very specific business question with limited context. We're getting thanks from the person who asked the question in the chat. So thank you again, Janice. I think it's a similar question, but slightly different in the Q&A, which is somebody talking about introversion, like basically somebody's in a couple, both of them self-identify as introverts, but one person's job is more accommodating than the others. And so I think this is less a on the job thing, and like, how do you deal with this in a relationship? I guess somebody's asking you relationship advice, Janice. It's like, how do you support your introvert spouse or partner if their job is not as like accommodating to some of these things? They're giving examples like early morning meetings several days a week, availability for things, and kind of like mandatory socializing kind of things. And how do you be supportive as the spouse or the partner or something like this?
Oh, that's real nice, because I was going to give the opposite advice. Okay, so how to be supportive? Ask them what they need. I can't speak for them, and they might not know, but get them to think about it. Get them to think about how they recharge the quickest, because what you might find is they recharge differently from different types of events, or different types of events with different people. And that can be very confusing to someone who wants, like, I want to know that X plus Y equals this, but you did X plus Y with a little bit of Z, and now I'm all confused. It might depend. And if they don't know what works, get them to start trying things. It could be going for a walk. It could be meditating. It could be, I don't know, whatever it is that people do to recharge. Everyone has their own different thing. It could be kneading bread. I don't know. But also, ask them what they want and be supportive. Sometimes it's just like, stay away from me and I'll come find you when I need you, kind of a thing. And that's okay. It's not personal. The fact that their job isn't as supportive, maybe it's a boundary setting thing. Again, also, I'm real big on boundaries. So yeah, boundaries could also be a thing. But yeah, just ask them what they need. I can't unfortunately answer that one for you or them. That probably wasn't helpful. But I will say, on a personal note, my partner has a very extroverted job that I have to deal with. And so it's very much I'm going to put this on the calendar. You can attend if you want, or you don't have to. Or like, here's the keys to the car while this event is on if you just want to sit, read a book, because I've done that.
And I think it's like also like, okay, I'm supportive. I'll go with you to the venue or to the green room, but like, it doesn't mean I'm a bad partner if I don't actually go to the gig and like listen to the loud music for 2 hours.
Yeah, no, I'm like, oh, I get to be at home for 2 hours by myself. Yes. Yeah. That's basically what it is. Like, bye, have fun. Let me know when you're coming home. Yeah.
I'm seeing questions about job searches as well as public speaking. So
public speaking.
Erin, yeah, do you have any advice for those of us who occasionally have to come out of our shells and give presentations to hundreds of people?
Is that an introversion thing, though? It's going to be my question, because there's a difference between being a little nervous because you're excited nervous. There's a difference between, because you're speaking to hundreds of people, they may or may not be interacting with you. So what is that draining? Why is that draining? Is it because you need to practice more? Is it because you need to center yourself? Is it because it's super important? There could be many reasons. I love public speaking. Not everyone does, though. And I've learned, when I do public speaking, to make it interactive. I'm not one of those people who will public speak and like just talk at you. And I found that helps me, because it's like I'm talking to friends and it makes it feel better. So I found a way of public speaking that works for me. If it's a case of you need some alone time before the event, do that. You need to have your favorite ice cream before the event, do that. If you need to give yourself a little carrot that after the event you get to do X, Y, and Z, do that. If it's about energy and introversion, if it's about being shy or nervous, that's a different thing, and there's different ways to deal with that, is what I would say.
Awesome. Um, I feel like there's also something there about like some of it is just like physiological. So one interesting thing I've noted is that I'm doing these live streams all the time and hosting these things. And I used to give talks in person all the time before COVID. And I would still get like this dry mouth thing on stage, which doesn't happen on camera on Zoom. And it's just like, it's physiological, right? Like you can eat an apple. That's actually something a producer recommended that just helps with keeping everything lubricated or just making sure you have a water bottle. And it's like, I don't feel nervous. I feel fine giving the talk, but there's just like our bodies have these physiological responses that we can't necessarily control. And so that's not necessarily something you can cure, right? You just kind of manage and deal with that sort of thing.
Yeah, I will say that my thing is sweating. No matter how comfortable I am or what it is or who I'm talking to. So I have to make sure that I wear whatever it is that I wear will not show sweat stains, because no matter what I do, that's my thing. So yeah, I totally agree with that. It's just what your body's doing, and sorry.
Yeah, it's like we have bodies, which we forget sometimes when we're little squares on Zoom.
Yeah.
Uh, Karen was also suggesting Toastmasters to practice public speaking. So I think there's also a practice thing involved with that too, if it's about confidence and just being able to, I know I've joined a couple Toastmasters meetings before, and they do sometimes like extemporaneous things too, to just get you to improvise and practice doing that.
Yeah. I've heard good things about them.
But they do like put you on the spot. It's like, okay, give a 3-minute speech about this. And
You're like,
go, right? So it's like, just know what you're getting into. But I found even a few meetings very valuable when I have joined. Anonymous attendee wants to know any tips for navigating the job search world. I keep hearing, I think this connects back to networking. I keep hearing that networking is the only way to success, and it just all feels very intimidating.
it's a numbers game. Job hunting is, as a former recruiter and like HR manager, it's a numbers game, because what people don't realize about recruiting is your one recruiter probably has anywhere from 1 to 200 jobs open at the same time. That's why you're not getting personalized responses. That's why they might come back to you 3 months later about something. And not everything is under that recruiter's control. Sometimes they have to talk to the manager. The manager's giving them a job description, which isn't really what they're looking for, because a lot of the job descriptions out there are asking for everything under the sun and the kitchen sink and a unicorn on top. And so part of the intimidation might be that I don't qualify for all of it. Like I can't tick all of these things off. Most of the time, organizations are looking for like, can you hit 50% of these things and we can do everything else? Then there's also the part of, yeah, the interviewing. Sometimes the job gets put on hold. Sometimes there's a hiring freeze. Sometimes there's a reorganization of the organization. All sorts of things can affect the job, but it is a numbers game, unfortunately, when you're thinking about how many people apply for jobs and the recruiter just goes in, puts in some keywords, and it comes up and they pick the top resumes, kind of a thing, that with what they're looking for, and what they say they're looking for and what they're actually looking for isn't always the same thing. Also, it is not personal. We don't know you as a recruiter. We don't know you. And even if we've had conversations with you, you're one of, sorry, but like hundreds, if not thousands of people that we speak to. So try and get a methodical approach to it. Try and get a system approach to it, and try not to take it personally. And it is a numbers game. But as from the networking part of it, it's really, really helpful to start building relationships before you need to get a job with recruiters who specialize in recruiting for your speciality, your role, your whatever it is that you're looking for. But that's a whole different conversation.
I would say that one of the upsides of normalizing Zoom and online stuff is that it's easier to just reach out to people on LinkedIn and do like virtual coffees, because you don't have to actually literally be in like the same city in the same neighborhood at the same time and try to schedule an actual Starbucks date or whatever, right? Like you could just do it on Zoom and talk for 15 minutes, and it's like people are maybe more likely to get on that, or just to get on the phone even. So try that. I actually have my students do that and just reach out for informational interviews. And it's also a numbers game of, like I say, like celebrate if you get a rejection. It's better to get a rejection to just like be completely ignored. At least you have the clarity, and that's fine, and it's not personal, right? People might be busy or whatever.
Yes. Yes, all for that. Yes.
Winnie has a question for you, Janice, about any recommended books or sites or other resources, in particular for people in leadership positions to help create more inclusive environments for introverts.
No, I need to write that book. That's the answer on that one. I've written a similar book for an organization, but it's not like public. No, unfortunately. I mean, you can go to my website, there's a bunch of stuff, but specifically a book, and now I need to write this down because I feel like that's a really useful thing. Inclusive. There might be like a couple of chapters in, I think it's the Idiot's Guide to Introversion, or that brand of books, the Introversion for Dummies. I think there's a couple of chapters within that book that is available for free online that will have something in there, but like a whole book, no. There is, hang on, one of my friends just finished writing a book. Let me see if it is available yet. But it wouldn't be for inclusive. It would just be for like a manager who is an introvert. No, it's not. Yeah, how to lead. It's mainly about how to lead as an introvert, and not necessarily how to create an inclusive environment. So that is a good catch, Winnie. I'm sorry, but I'll try to write that book at some point.
All right. I think some of it is in the course in terms of like leading as an introvert, but I think this is like almost the bigger question of like at the organizational level, how do you foster these cultures of inclusivity of people who are, I don't know if that's neurodivergence or just have different sort of personality or energy styles, right?
Yeah.
But it's rethinking diversity across these other forms of identity.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, you're totally right. I'm gonna do some research into that. I'm sure there's probably one, but I don't know. I will check among my friends.
Winnie's saying she'll look out for your book in the future.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure. Anonymous attendee says, massive stress and burnout from my last job has stripped me of my confidence and built lots of negativity in my head. After 30 years of successfully working as a designer and leader, I never thought I'd be feeling as introverted and insecure as I currently am today. I'm about to start a new job in a few weeks and fear that I'll self-sabotage. Definitely need some healthier habits, self-talk, something to help me believe in myself as much as others do. Help. So I feel like there's something here about weaving together insecurity and introversion. And I think they're different things, but this person might be feeling them kind of interwoven at the moment and having a lot of internal dialogue kind of stuff. So any thoughts there?
Yeah, I'd say we cover that on the course because it's the imposter syndrome, the new job, because there's a 90-day ramp up for new jobs regardless. And then there's the introversion part of it. And yeah, that's definitely some of the topics that we cover in the course. And the 3 levels of the course would help you in different ways.
And I think there's a similar question that kind of tease things up to Amber's question about just the logistics of the course. I think we have about 10 minutes left, so we can talk about that. I posted a link on the website, and we could certainly answer that, but there is member and non-member pricing for everything here at AIGA. So for folks who are new to AIGA or not yet members, we are a nonprofit member-supported organization, but we also have programming that's open to everybody in the design community, but we have to charge you a little bit more. So if you become a member, there is a discount to not just this, but to all of our events and our conferences and things like that. And it also helps us with our budgeting and just sustain these kind of programs and start new programs and courses. There are 3 different tiers that we have labeled Spark, Candle, and Lighthouse. And you can look at the table on that website that I posted the link to. But basically, the tier 1 Spark is access to the pre-recorded content. And so Janice does video drops once a month, and you can access that. And there's an online community where you can chat with other students, other participants. The Candle tier is everything in Spark. So you get the monthly content drops, and you also get an invite to a monthly group meetup where you discuss the themes of the month with Janice, and I'm often attending those as well. And then tier 3 is Lighthouse, which is an individualized coaching level, where you get a monthly coaching call with Janice as well. And then that's actually divided up between individual contributors and managers as well. So it's a grid of 6, but the pricing tiers are the same for the 3. If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's 2 tracks, one for managers and one for non-managers. And yes, they are different, because that's something that someone asked me and they didn't realize that they were totally different tracks. So the topics for managers are more managerially skewed, and the ones for non-managers are that have no management information in there at all.
Yeah, and we also have some early bird rates through June 30th, so through the end of this month, to sign up, because we'll kick things off in July. So we want people to sign up so we know how many people are on board to launch this new cohort. Is there anything else about the logistics or the structure of the course that you wanted to go over, Janice?
So yeah, each month we drop a video. There's normally worksheets that accompany the video to help you work through some stuff outside of the video, or it will either be like a spreadsheet for you to document some stuff, or it'll be a worksheet for you to journal, or something that will help you put what's in the video to practice in real life or Zoom life. And then with the live events, that's once a month with me. We occasionally have surprise guests. And it's a great place for people like to share and to talk and community build, and just find out what different people are doing in the space, and how that works for them. And then for the coaching, it is you get 30 minutes with me per month to talk about whatever. It could be what's talked about in the topics, or it could be something that's happening in your job right now, which tends to be the case. People are like, this thing happened and I need to talk about it. And so those are the different levels of support that you get throughout this course. And it's a year, and it's pretty awesome. And the first cohort is 6 months through, and it's been wonderful, actually. And we've got a lot of great feedback from them, and we're doing some tweaks, and we'll listen. Like if there's something that's missing or something that you'd like to talk about, we listen to that. Like there's definitely one live session that's coming up shortly where someone suggested specifically they want it to be like this, and it's like, oh, that's really useful, and we will go ahead and do it. So we're very open to your needs and suggestions. Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Any other questions?
I think this is a really big fundamental one from Erin. What is the objective of the training? To deal with being an introvert, or how to become an extrovert?
If you would like to become an extrovert, this is not the course for you. You're not, as I said at the start, you are not broken. You as an introvert are a human, and you have different needs from different people, and that is fine. How to deal with being an introvert, not necessarily how I would put it. I would phrase it more learning more about yourself, working on yourself, and knowing what works for you to help you become a better human, and which will therefore work with your career and how to deal with other people and that sort of a thing. The objective of the training in general is to help you build your brand and get hired as creative introverts. That's generally my tagline for my business, but also what partly of what this course is about is to be more secure in who you are and what you can bring to the table, and how working the way that you do works for you, and communicating with other people, because like I mentioned at the start, there's not enough information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and communicating to people being like, I'm still awesome, this is just how I work, will help everyone in the long run.
Yeah, I'd like to add, we recently recorded a testimonial between Janice and one of her like one of the people that she's currently coaching in the Lighthouse tier, Kelly, who agreed to have us record it, and we've edited it down. And Kelly shares this anecdote about, and we'll be dropping that video, I think, later this week, so you can check it out. But Kelly talks about how prior to taking this course at a previous job, she basically got called out by her managers and some of her coworkers as like seeming fake, because it seemed like she was like acting or trying, but maybe not in the most effective way to like overcome being an introvert and being a creative, to be whatever, right? Like kind of maybe overly bubbly or sort of artificially extroverted in a way. And people saw through that. And so I think what her realization working with Janice was about like the authenticity. Like she doesn't have to be sort of like artificially bubbly or extroverted to necessarily be accepted or taken as serious, but it's like, how did she be authentically who she is and then offer value as a professional? And I think there's something there too. It's not like a personality transformation course, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, well said.
Do we plan a new cohort every 6 months or so? Yeah, we're looking into this. I think it depends on demand, but based on demand, this is why we're launching a new cohort right now in July rather than waiting for January 2023. So if it keeps up, yeah, we can certainly pick up the pace as well. Any other questions or final thoughts, Janice?
Hope to see some of you there.
Yeah, I hope to see some of you there as well. I've been going to most of the sessions as well, just to help with tech and to listen in on the conversations in my capacity as well. I don't think I necessarily self-identify as an introvert, but I've gotten a lot out of it, just watching the videos and joining the conversations as well, of just being aware of things like how to manage energy levels, or how people are, like what's happening in people's internal dialogues as they're kind of performing as professionals, and just being aware of their feelings and all of this stuff with COVID and with personalities and with group dynamics and all sorts of things. All right, Mia, thank you for, Mia says no questions, but wanted to thank the hosts and participants. I had fun on this Q&A. I really appreciated the stories and the questions that people were sharing.
Okay. Yeah, if there's no other questions, I'm hoping that this was helpful. I hope that we see some of you, and this has been a really fun adventure, quite frankly, and I'm enjoying the people that I've met in my previous cohort, and I'm looking forward to meeting new ones in the new cohort, and maybe there'll be like a mixture of cohorts at some point.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a crossover event. AIGA.org is where you can learn more. I posted the direct link, but you can find it on our site. And this is being recorded as well, so we'll post that on our site as well. So have a great rest of the week, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Hope to see you in the course. June 30th is the early bird deadline. Bye.